You're back with us on a beautiful day in Quebec for the Canadian Grand Prix. Let's join Martin Brundle. And first of all, it's James Allen.
Thank you very much, Jim. Yep, everybody pumped up here today. Terrific Grand Prix in prospect. England versus France coming straight up afterwards. And you know what? There's a chance of 2 England victories today. Jenson Button starting from the front row of the grid this afternoon in a BAR Honda, which looks very well suited to this Gilles Villeneuve circuit. Magnificent skyline of Montreal, a beautiful racetrack. Gained a reprieve, was almost off the calendar last year, but managed to get itself back on again. It's the 18th Grand Prix this season, and haven't the crowd here in Montreal reacted positively. All weekend it's been a sellout. They've been cheering the fast laps, they've been whooping, they've been hollering, and there hasn't even been Jacques Villeneuve to celebrate the local hero in the field. Well, Jenson Button, we were hearing, as pipped for pole yesterday by Ralf Schumacher, but there's no doubt at all that the BAR is a much stronger race car at the moment than the BMW Williams. And Jenson certainly feeling confident, judging by the way he was talking to Martin on the grid just there. That first win for Jenson can't be too far away now. Well, if you want an exciting race, the best place to start is with an exciting grid. And we've certainly got that today. Michael Schumacher has qualified a season worst 6th today. And that's also his lowest ever grid slot here in Montreal. Jenson Button there, strapped into the car. You can see just getting into his mental concentration zone. Did a splendid job yesterday in qualifying. Now, Schumacher might not like this Montreal track very much, but it's been very, very good to him over the years, Martin. He's won 6 Grand Prix here. If he wins today, the first man ever to win the same race 7 times. But I tell you what, if you look at where he is there, with some very racy customers in front of him, as you say, there are 2 Renaults looking particularly strong here this weekend. Michael wins today, he will really, really have worked for it, won't he?
He will indeed. I think he's carrying more fuel than most of the people in front of him, with the exception of the Renaults. And the feeling in the paddock is that those 2 are potentially the fastest cars of the afternoon. The strategies are going to play out, and I think we're going to see some intense racing and a little bit of counter-fighting in the middle there. The McLarens will be hanging on to the back of that lead pack as well, I believe. So I'm really settling in here for what I believe is going to be a very exciting Grand Prix.
Timo Glock there is an unfamiliar name to Formula 1 viewers this year. He's the 3rd driver for Jordan Ford. You can see him 16th on the grid there. He's in this weekend for Giorgio Pantano, who has commercial differences with the Jordan team. They say that they might be sorted out by Indianapolis, so Pantano should be back in the car for then. But Glock, certainly a baptism of fire for him. Chucked in very much at the last minute on Saturday morning, and a very, very difficult time for him. Certainly, by his own admission, overdrove the car yesterday in qualifying, but all part of his learning curve.
I don't really care. If Michael wins the race, great, for his 7th win here in Canada. I have no problems with that at all. I just hope this lot frighten him all the way to the checkered flag if he's going to do it. But I think he's going to have to really pull something out of the bag to take this race, and it's going to unfold, I think, in with some unusual way. Let's hope that there are not 2 or 3 of them taken out in the first lap, because it just tends to spoil that racing. So a good clean run through turn 1. You can't win the race in the first corner, but you sure can lose it. And I was interested, the 3 drivers I spoke to on the grid, totally different perception from them. I don't know how you felt, but Jenson seemed supremely relaxed. I thought this man on pole here, Ralph, seemed quite intense, and Jarno seemed completely out of control, actually, I thought. He looked sort of, he just looked busy, panicking to get into the car.
Well, it may have had something to do with the time that you arrived in his grid slot, I think, because he was looking for his balaclava, he was looking for everything, and certainly I think that may have had something to do with it. But Jenson, yes, looking superbly relaxed. He knows what he's got to do this afternoon. He's really worried, though, about Jarno Trulli there, 3rd on the grid, just behind him then on the pit wall side. And we've seen all season, haven't we, the superb starts of the Renault team. Talking to Jenson last night, he feels that there's a very good chance that Jarno Trulli will get past him into the first corner. And given that the Renault is almost certainly carrying more fuel, that really will mess Jenson's race up if it happens.
To pick up on something Jim said earlier in the programme about Michael not really liking this racetrack, I think because it doesn't have super high-speed corners, it's all about long straights and quite tricky chicanes. You do need a very particular type of setup here. Everybody just about getting away there. Alonso looks slow away, but I suspect that's what Michael means. But at the end of the day, there are 10 World Championship points for all of them.
One car getting very, very slow away. Hard to tell from here who that was. If it was anybody up the grid, they've lost their grid slot because everybody else has rocketed away. Let you know that Takuma Sato in the BAR is starting from the pit lane. Had a disaster yesterday in qualifying, going for pole once again. Great first sector and then dropped it in the final sector in the chicane. So he qualified down the grid and has opted, instead of starting in the lowly grid slot, to start from the pit lane with a fairly high fuel load. So it's a very, very fast car, the BAR, and Sato will be coming through the field. That should give us plenty to watch. But it has a feeling of it a bit like Monaco, doesn't it? A few weeks ago, we had a terrific race there. We had a number of cars in front of Schumacher on the grid. He had a different strategy up his sleeve, and we didn't have a good race there. That's Norm Legault, the promoter here in Montreal, the man who worked so hard to rescue this Grand Prix when it looked like it was going to drop off the calendar. But we should also point out, Martin, this is a race often full of incident. We've seen a tremendous number of safety cars here over the years, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, and yellow flags, safety cars, red flags. They'll have to just delay the start of the football, hopefully, if we have any dramas like that. But
don't say things like that.
As unlikely as that will be, but absolutely, it's very tight, very narrow racetrack, and there are several sections where you cannot clear a car away without really halting proceedings, or certainly under double wave yellows in a safety car. So they've just all got to have a sensible pill and get this race underway in the first lap or two, and then decide how they go from there. The man who has got a different job to that is Michael Schumacher, and indeed Rubens Barrichello. Mike, I remember starting here alongside Senna, P6 or P7, back in '92, and Senna was just mighty on the first lap, as we saw so many times in his career, and knew he had to pick them off very early on. And I think Michael is under the same pressure, but he can't afford to lose a front wing.
Coming down the back straight then on the parade lap. When they do it for real on the first lap, they'll be doing 210 miles an hour into braking for this final corner of the chicane, down to 75 miles an hour. They do that brake in just 2 seconds. Now, your average road car, the hardest you could get, the G-force you get on a road car, would be about 1 G. And the braking G, just into that one corner here, Montreal, an F1 car, 5.5 G. It's hard work driving a Formula One car. It's physical, it's tough. And today we're going to have an hour and a half of very, very tough sport, hopefully, in front of us.
Well, it's been a very slow warm-up lap. That hurts the Bridgestone runners, we know, because the compound of their rubber does not work as well as the Michelin's when they're way down on temperature. They come out of the blankets about 100 degrees centigrade. They're probably 60 or 70 there now, lining up on the grid, and the tyre pressure goes down as well. I was watching the cars practice their starts. Those Renaults have immense traction, so watch out for those.
70 laps then of the 2.7-mile Gilles Villeneuve circuit for the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix. It's going to be coming up soon there. Sato in the pit lane. We're ready to start. Let's go! Great start by Button, and great start by Trulli. He's trying to get through. Now he's got a problem. Trulli's got a problem, I think. That's Alonso through Button. That's just what he needed. The Renaults haven't got past him. I think it's pretty sure it's Trulli, but there's contact there with the 2 McLarens, and one of the Jaguars involved, 2 of the Jaguars involved as well. Yellow flag down in that area, but everyone is safely away, I think.
Yes, I think it was Coulthard caught up at the back. Looks like he got a tap. And one of the Renaults out of the race already, but certainly coasting anyway. We believe it's Trulli. So, and the Ferraris got away reasonably well, but Raikkonen has managed to pass Barrichello.
Yeah, very strange start there for Jarno Trulli. Nothing really seemed to impede him. He just dropped the clutch and then didn't really go anywhere fast. First 20 yards are okay, and then he suddenly crawled. Ralf Schumacher leads then from Jenson Button in second place. Alonso for Renault third, Montoya fourth. Michael Schumacher up to fifth. 6th is Raikkonen, 7th Barrichello, 8th Cristiano de Mata, and 9th Olivier Panis. Timo Glock on his Grand Prix debut is up in 10th place as a result of that tangle between the 2 McLarens.
Yes, and managed to navigate his way nicely through that, but Ralf Schumacher with a comfortable advantage then to come to the completion of this first lap. Ralf Schumacher from Jenson Button, Alonso, Montoya, Michael Schumacher, Raikkonen, Barrichello, de Mata, Panis, Glock. We've got Coulthard down in 16th place at the moment.
Well, I reckon Michael Schumacher will be smiling to himself here, Martin, because he's got 1 Renault out of his way already. He's up to 5th place. There's only Alonso's Renault in front of him. It really did seem today the smart money was on Renault versus Ferrari. Here, let's have a look at Trulli again on your right of your screen.
Yes, look at that. He got away brilliantly. Was just shaping up to have a look at the back of Ralf Schumacher alongside Jenson Button, and it all came to a grinding halt. There he is in the pit lane. 2 cars starting from the pit lane. That was dangerous. And Sato drives out of the exit of the pit straight into an incident. Manages to miss them all. And lots of drama then between Coulthard and the 2 Jags.
Yeah, it looked like Klein actually tapped Coulthard from behind going into that corner. That looked like what it was. Christian Klein, career best, 10th on the grid, but it's come to nothing. Mark Webber comes into the pits with a front right puncture, so he's had problems as well. The 2 Jags really in the wars here at the start.
And the Jaguar jumped over the back of Coulthard's car, so I would imagine it was the right front of Webber caught the back of the McLaren. Ralf Schumacher led by 1.1 seconds, and it's more than that now. Over the line they'll go at the end of this pit straight. Schumacher very fast with a 1:14.7. The gap up to 1.8 seconds, and that is bad news for us all. There's a man who's going to feature strongly in the Grand Prix this afternoon. Yep. Jarno Trulli out of the race.
Yeah, winner in Monte Carlo, famously his first Grand Prix victory. He's not going to make it 2 today. There's Webber. He's taken on a new right front, and he is back out on track. Look at this, though. That's Takuma Sato, I believe, battling with David Coulthard. Battle for 13th place on the grid. So from the pit lane, Takuma Sato already up into 14th.
Yes, that was for position there. I think that was a replay they just snuck in there, James. Coulthard past Sato down in turn 1, and Ted has some news.
Team Renault need to speak to Trulli before he comes out. He's just walking past the McLaren garage right in front of me. He puts his hands up to his engineer, Alan Permain. The way they start is to ride the clutch, but they think it's more to do with gearbox. In fact, if I read some lips, I think I can say Jarno saying gearbox, but we'll have to wait until he speaks to Lou.
Yes, if you watch the replay, it does seem to lock up at the back. It actually is. He did very well to clear that car off the racing line because he had full acceleration. Then you can just see the back end skidding around as the transmission appears to lock. Bad news. They do a lot of practice starts through a weekend. They lay rubber down in the pit lane to give them a tenth or two after their pit stop, and you do wonder if they punish their transmission too hard.
Fantastic start for Ralf Schumacher, just what he needed. A lot of people are expecting him to fade this afternoon. The Williams, not a particularly fast race car at the moment, but well, so we certainly believe he's carrying a little bit less fuel than the people chasing him. There's a replay of Klein having yet another incident then.
Yeah, and I think Klein's made some space there. This is Webber coming in with the right front puncture, delamination there, but I'm sure that was because he clumped over the back of Coulthard in turn 1. But if Klein did make space there, did make a place, he'll have to yield and let them back in front, which he has done looking at the computer.
Amazing illustration of progress in Formula 1. The lap record here at the Ile de Notre Dame circuit, 1 minute 15.9 seconds, and we're already 1.2 seconds inside that after just 3 laps. Extraordinary how quick they go. Last year at this sort of stage they were doing 1 minute 17s, mid 1 minute 17s. This year they're doing mid 1 minute 14s. Well, we've seen Jarno Trulli retiring. Louise can tell us why.
Jarno, what can you tell us?
Suspension failure. It's very strange, it never happened before. But when I pulled the clutch, left it, the suspension just gone. So just came down, the car was touching, and I had to get out of the traffic to avoid the accident.
Bad luck, Jarno, that you have a James suspension.
Well, that is absolutely, he says he's never seen it before. I don't think I've seen that before, a suspension braking under acceleration like that from a start line position. That is most unusual, so what a shame. Well,
the mechanics are allowed, they're not allowed to do any work on the cars in Parc Fermé overnight after qualifying, but they are allowed to inspect them and just check that all the bolts are done up tightly and everything's okay. So, as you say, a very strange one. But the car did look funny, didn't it? It suddenly went squatted down a little bit at the front. It was hard to see exactly what the problem was, but there you have it. That's a very strange one. I'm sure the boys at Enstone will be having a very, very close look at that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to have been in his position there, James. He was at the front of the pack, car fails, pulls over into the new pit lane, 2 cars steaming out of the pit lane to join the race, having had problems, and somehow he managed to stay out of all their way. He did well.
Well, the Renaults do have a very different suspension setup from other cars. They've got a one-piece suspension setup, so I don't know if that's anything to do with it, but normally you have to have some sort of impact before you break a suspension wishbone. Ralf Schumacher leads then at the end of lap 5. Jenson Button now 2.5 seconds behind him. Alonso a further 1.2 behind Button. Montoya is 4th, Michael Schumacher 5th, Kimi Räikkönen 6th, Rubens Barrichello 7th, and Cristiano De Mata at the moment 8th for Toyota. Lap 8 of the Canadian Grand Prix. Ralf Schumacher leading 2.5 seconds from Jenson Button. Alonso third, Montoya fourth, Michael Schumacher fifth. Rubens Barrichello has got past Kimi Raikkonen now into 6th place. Raikkonen down to 7th. And here's how Barrichello did it, Martin.
Yeah, he just drove clean past him. I'm beginning to think Raikkonen's got a problem brewing up somewhere in the engine department. I mean, OK, that's a good slipstream and the Ferrari's strong. But Raikkonen's not been too slow in a straight line. And he literally leapfrogged him. So problems for Kimi Raikkonen. I wonder why he's lost so much straight line speed.
Yep, Cristiano De Mata 8th then for Toyota. The two Toyotas 8th and 9th. Panis in 9th place. Then Heidfeld 10th for Jordan. Timo Glock dropping down to 13th on his Grand Prix debut, having been as high as 10th on the opening lap. But here's the man who won this Grand Prix back in 2001, who was on pole last year and again this year. Very fast around this Canadian circuit is Ralf Schumacher. At the moment looking very comfortable. Now, the paddock sages were saying that they reckon that the BMW Williams had about 10, possibly 11 laps with the fuel in. Certainly the Renaults and the Ferraris carrying more than that. We'll see soon how genuine that Renault pace, that Williams pace was.
New lap record for Rubens Barrichello. Now he's cleared that McLaren of Raikkonen. He's just cruising straight up to the back of Michael Schumacher. Ferrari's 5th and 6th. I think they'll be sitting there at the moment. We're on lap 9. They're just 7 seconds away from the leader, and I think they'll be sitting there feeling very comfortable on the pit wall, as we just saw.
There's a tremendous scrap going on in 14th place between Felipe Massa and Takuma Sato, who's been passed by Massa. He's dropped down into 15th place now. They were side by side under us through the chicane. Hopefully we'll get a view of that in a minute. Two very, very aggressive racers then. And Mark Webber diving into the pit lane again. His second stop. First one was for a puncture. We believe from our F1 ITV pit crew that Mark Webber, you just saw him briefly there, has a suspension problem.
Yes, I think it was Klein that actually jumped over the back of Coulthard at the first corner, and then somebody else ran into Mark, which gave him the puncture, and clearly some kind of... The suspension is so weak, except for in its designed direction of operation. Brakes like an egg. You could brake it with your foot. Just walk up to that car, brake the suspension with your foot if you wanted to. It's so light, but unfortunately it's too light today. And Mark Webber, having had a very difficult weekend, out of the Grand Prix. 2 retirements then. Webber suspension failure, 19th. He was 19th when he dropped out. And Jarno Trulli also suspension failure. It is bumpy running. They do jump across those curbs very heavily. And maybe that's, with Parc Fermé now, maybe that's why the cars are beginning to brake. They had quite a pounding all weekend.
Still pretty scary, isn't it? It's a high-speed track, this one. It's not one you really want to have suspension failures on. As I said, 210 miles an hour, the top speed down the back straight. And that is pretty fast by F1 standards, no doubt about it. Ralf Schumacher just easing out a little bit from Jenson Button. Alonso parked up behind Button, appears to be holding up the train then, Jenson Button, at the moment. Perhaps he's trying to conserve a little bit of fuel. Well, we've just seen Mark Webber go out of the Grand Prix. He's talking now to Louise.
Mark, not a lot you could do about that. I mean, suspension damage here, just too risky.
Yeah, that's right. I made a pretty good start, and just when I got to turn 2, there was contact. There was a McLaren, and Christian went around that, and I was just nowhere to go. Then Christian clipped him again and come further out to me and landed on my front wing. And so we got back out there, and then looks like there's something off the left rear of the car now. So yeah, one of those weekends.
Thanks, Mark. Bad luck.
Mark? Well, that's unfortunately what happens. You know, we had 2 Williams, didn't we, in Nürburgring running into each other. Now 2 Jaguars, it seems, here. But that's what happens down there in the heat of turn 1. Kimi Raikkonen getting back up to speed again. So at the moment, no signs of a retirement for him. I just wondered why the Ferrari breezed past him so easily. You just see him coming into the back of the picture now. He's falling away from the main pack. Coulthard's making his way through the pack after that first corner incident. He's now up to 12. Ralf Schumacher leads by 3.7 seconds from Button. Alonso 3rd. Montoya 4th. Michael Schumacher, you can now see them, the 2 Ferraris, Schumacher and Barrichello 5 and 6, with a fading Raikkonen, then the 2 Toyotas 8 and 9.
And keep an eye out as the cars come down this long straight into the chicane at the end. There's bits of bodywork in the racetrack just lying on the apex of the chicane. Watch as Button turns in, see if you can see it. There is a piece of black bodywork there, and certainly the bollard that's been put there to stop them from jumping that chicane has been knocked flat, so quite a bit already. Ted, what can you tell us?
Down at McLaren, James, I've been listening to Kimi Raikkonen's engine. It's actually, they're going to bring him in for a stop now, I believe, but the engine sounds fine. I wonder if it isn't a gearbox problem. Perhaps he's lost top gear, but they are pitting him very shortly.
Well, that's about when we expected the two stoppers to come, the three stoppers to come in, James, isn't it? Around now, probably actually slightly earlier than now. But Coulthard pits then. Coulthard pits from P12. The first of the scheduled stoppers of the afternoon. Back end just stepping out as he hammers the brake pedal to stop. And it looks so fast when you stand down there. They're so brave, the mechanics, just watching this Formula One car coming at them. And away he goes then. No problems for Coulthard and McLaren, but he's got a lot of work to do this afternoon to get anywhere near some World Championship points.
Certainly has. Started 9th on the grid, lost 6 places at the start, 7 places, I beg your pardon, at the start with that incident with Clean. And another tough afternoon for David Coulthard in Montreal. Ralf Schumacher goes through to start another lap, so he's completed 12 laps now. This is around about the time that most people thought he would be coming in for his first stop. Look how Barrichello has got himself right onto the back of Michael Schumacher. The two Ferraris biding their time at the moment then.
Raikkonen pits. So McLaren then with the least fuel of anybody. And Raikkonen pits from P7. Again, they are so badly looking forward to their new 19B car that they're going to race, I think, in Manicourt. And they're really struggling, McLaren, for pace and reliability at the moment. Although they've not had too many issues this weekend. But first to pit then. It's surprising to see the Williams and the BARs going so far for me, James.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a surprise. Raikkonen rejoining there. He drove the new 19B car, the interim chassis, heavily revised for the rest of the season. He drove it last week in the Silverstone test, and the word on the street is it's about half a second faster than the car racing here this weekend in Montreal. But if you take into account that most teams make about a half-second gain the first half of the season in development terms, so it's pretty much keeps them on a par level with everybody else. It's hopefully going to be a good platform for the 2005 car. We will find out.
Can I see the BAR team in the far distance there coming out into the pit lane? Certainly somebody in the middle of the lane. And Button in then. Jenson Button pits. The Ferrari smiles will get slightly wider, I think, now to see him going in for some fuel.
And Montoya as well. You can see him at the top of your screens there. Juan Montoya pits was in 4th place. And Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari slide past. They've probably got another 6 or 7 laps. Bit of a delay, is it, from the Montoya stop? No. Seems to be going okay. He obviously stopped a little bit later than Button. There he is. And back out on the track, so no position change there. Meanwhile, we've got, you can see them rejoining. Ralf Schumacher leading the Grand Prix on lap 14. 5.8 seconds the margin over Alonso in 2nd. Michael Schumacher up to 3rd now. But look at this, the fastest first sector of the race so far. Schumacher is beginning to put the hammer down here in Montreal on lap 14.
He is indeed, and Alonso responding too. They know that Ralf Schumacher surely is coming in the pits. Normally, the Williams team will bring their cars in just one lap apart. So if Ralf Schumacher pits this lap, Ferrari and Alonso, Renault and the two Ferraris then are going to just absolutely nail it. This is their moment in the Grand Prix to make their strategy pay off. Michael Schumacher does not pit. Alonso does not pit. Barrichello in the back of your picture clearly does not pit.
And neither does Ralf Schumacher. There he goes through to complete lap 14. Well, that last lap not particularly spectacular for Ralf Schumacher, a full second slower than his brother Michael, who's just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, 1:14 flat. And there is real pace in this Ferrari. We've seen it throughout the season, haven't we? Schumacher particularly very, very quick in this car. And all through this weekend, on the longer runs, certainly when he had fuel in the car, it looked pretty pacey. But, well, they went for a high fuel strategy in qualifying. Is it going to pay off for them this afternoon? Ralf Schumacher leading then. 5.6 seconds now the margin over Alonso. Michael Schumacher just 7 seconds behind his brother and feeling pretty comfortable about things, I would imagine. Dematter up to 5th. Button then has rejoined in 6th place after that pit stop with Juan Montoya 7th. But they, of course, made the stops. Everyone in front of them has yet to stop.
Ralf Schumacher then lapping the Minardi. There's marshals on the track down here where Ralf Schumacher's just coming to, but he goes in the pit lane. Ralf Schumacher into the pit lane, then the marshals have cleared that debris away from the final chicane. And once again, then Michael Schumacher still pumping in very quick laps out there. This is a crucial time of the Grand Prix. They need to get Ralph out, hopefully not in too much traffic. All looks sweet at the front, doesn't it? They turn the lollipop over, select first gear, and away he goes. That looked good.
Looked very good indeed, but it wasn't a particularly spectacular in-lap for Ralf Schumacher, so we'll see where that feeds him back into the picture. You can see he rejoins comfortably in front of Jenson Button. So he is in 4th place now. Alonso leading, Michael Schumacher 2nd, Rubens Barrichello 3rd. They've all yet to stop. Live in Montreal, Fernando Alonso coming out of the pits on lap 18, having just made his stop, and it was a slow one. The fuel hose reluctant to go on, and Alonso total stationary time 16 seconds. Meanwhile, we've got an incident involving car number 6 under investigation by the stewards. That's Kimi Räikkönen.
Absolute disaster for Renault then. There's a major own goal there. 16 seconds to get the fuel in. It's let Ferrari run free at the front. And Ted is down in the pits.
Oh, it's so unfortunate for Renault. They just couldn't get the original Alonso race nozzle on. It wouldn't go. The guy pushed and pushed. It just wouldn't happen. But anyway, they went very quickly onto the spare nozzle. That connected. But as you say, 16 costly seconds.
And the Barrichello pits from 2nd place. Then meanwhile, Michael Schumacher smashes the lap record in 1 minute 13.6. Incredible time from him. And Barrichello was right behind him, looking extremely racy. And away he goes then. Remember, they're 2 stopping, so it's not surprising they're taking on a bit more fuel and stationary a little bit longer than the others. And it's all playing beautifully into the hands of Ferrari at the moment. And look, this is a drag race down to turn 3, which the Williams wins.
Absolutely. Well, Michael Schumacher then is going to have to make a stop fairly soon. And when he does, he's going to come out, I think, behind Jenson Button, because Button currently in 3rd place, 18 seconds behind the Ferrari driver. He was leading him before the first round of pit stops. Look how hard Schumacher is trying, but you need about 19 or 20 seconds really in your pocket to make a stop and rejoin here in Montreal. So Schumacher, that is why he's pushing so hard. He wants to clear Button when he comes out.
And he'll be going in the pit lane, I believe, at the end of this straight. Indeed, he does. So Barrichello came out of the pit right with, I believe, Ralf Schumacher. Surely Michael Schumacher's got a great chance of being, in fact, it was Montoya. So Michael may well not take the lead at this stage of the Grand Prix. So a pivotal time then. The Ferrari team need to get him out in 8-point-something seconds if it's going to be a good one. On go some scrub tyres and lots of fuel going in the car. Quite a long stop for Michael. Where is he going to work out on the racetrack when he rejoins?
Well, he's going to be behind Ralf Schumacher. There's Jenson Button, he's behind him as well. And there you can see Rubens Barrichello just going through the top of your screen. So he slots back into third place in front of Rubens Barrichello. Yeah,
so importantly then, Michael was held up behind Montoya, and he has got past Montoya in the pit stops. But Barrichello, who was looking so strong, did not. Raikkonen has served his penalty for, had to go a drive-through penalty through the pits on the speed limit. And he crossed the white line on the pit exit. He nipped the white line. You have to stay outside of it. And Raikkonen, that's an expensive penalty, isn't it, for being a few inches out of line.
I don't know about you, Martin, but I thought Schumacher would have done a bit more in that first round of stops. Yes, he got one Montoya, he passed him, but he pitted 7 laps later than the Williams driver, and he's got a much faster car. Surely just jumping him was the least of his expectations in that first round of stops.
Yeah, I thought he'd come out further down the road, but don't forget he stopped for 9 odd seconds, took on more fuel. He's still looking in great shape for the Grand Prix. But Ralf Schumacher leads by 4.3 from Jenson Button. They've got to stretch, you know. They've got to push like crazy. They're going to beat Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello this afternoon.
Well, we've seen a few races like that here over the years, haven't we? A straight fight between Ralf Schumacher back in 2001 with his brother Michael. What a terrific Grand Prix that was. They were absolutely nose to tail for the entire 70 laps. On that occasion, Ralf putting one over on his brother. It was the first time he beat his brother in a straight fight in Formula One, and how he celebrated that event. Look at this, the margin more or less the same then as it was before the first round of pit stops, so they don't seem to have changed all that much, certainly amongst the front two. The big difference, though, is that Schumacher's up to third, and we've got looks like one of the Jordan mechanics has been hit by Nick Heidfeld, I think, there, and I hope he's okay. Writhing on the floor there, but just getting him out of the way. So clearly some sort of problem down there in the Jordan garage. I'm sure we'll get news for you all about it. Heidfeld was running outside the top 10, just on the fringes of the top 10, and he's now dropping down. He's down in 15th place as a result of that. Takuma Sato started from the pit lane, as we saw. He's up to 12th place at the moment, having a great scrap with Felipe Massa and Cristiano de Mata. I'm sure we'll see a little of that at some point, but it's been so much going on at the front, I don't think the directors wanted to go too far back through the field, but that is a spirited fight, I can tell you.
Ralf Schumacher's lead, 3.8 seconds. Button nibbled a bit of that back as we have 2 cars entering the pits. It's Klein from 17th in the Jaguar, Webber already out of the race, and Panis from 7th in the Toyota, his first stop of the afternoon at the end of lap 21. Nick Heidfeld has rejoined the race, and Klein has a problem in the Jaguar pit. Has he missed the pit? Has he run over one of the hydraulic hoses? We don't know. He was moving forward.
Well, he's gone back down the pit lane and rejoined the racetrack, so something's gone a bit pear-shaped, I think, for him. No sign of Jaguar mechanics waiting for him to come back in again. Of course, Klein involved in that first lap incident with the McLarens. He gave Coulthard a little nudge into the first corner, and having started 10th on the grid, Christian Klein really needed today to use that as a launch pad for his first ever World Championship points. Here's have a look at what happened with Jordan.
It's strange, so he's already made his stop. Presumably then he's going to get released, and oh, now he's gone, look, with all the fuelers still on the side. So it was a refueler that was run over there, and as you say, James, hopefully, and Louise is down there.
Right, yes, you're right, Martin. That was Gomi Mick on the refueler, got knocked over there with the car leaving before it was expected. The good news, though, he's fine. He's just the team physio's had a look at him. He's absolutely fine.
Yep, good news indeed. So how on earth did that happen? That's, you know, the guy in the lollipop I don't know, we'll have to watch again, see if it went up, but the refuelers were absolutely nowhere near ready to be out of the way.
Absolutely no question. This was not a marginal call at all from the looks of things. That was they were still going about their business when Heidfeld set off for whatever reason. There's Jenson Button, currently still in second place, pushing hard though, just taking a tenth a lap out of Ralf Schumacher. It's not really enough, and I have to say the pace in this race of the Williams certainly much better than anything they showed throughout the free practice. So they've really sorted this car out, I think, in Ralf Schumacher's hands, and he's going very nicely at the moment.
Yes, I think they made, and here is Raikkonen cheating the white line on the inside. Wow, did he cross it? His rear wheel would have been a little bit across it as well. Did he run it along it or did he cross it? That was a marginal call. Montoya, we saw him locking a wheel up at the top hairpin. So the race just moves into one of its static phases now as it's nip and tuck, and they're getting ready for the next stops.
I don't know what it is about this place, but we say there's always incidents and safety cars and that kind of thing over the years. It's just a place that stuff seems to happen. I don't know why. It's no particular characteristic of the racetrack, which is similar in a way to Imola, but it's just a place where things happen. We've had all sorts of things down the years, funny stuff happening in the pit lane as well. Last year, just 11 finishes. It's a very tough track on the brakes, particularly. The engines don't like it much here. As into the pits then comes Takuma Sato, and only Felipe Massa and Giancarlo Fisichella in the two Saubers. Only those two yet to stop. This is lap 24. So that was a terrific effort then by the two Saubers to have qualified where they did. Fisichella 11th on the grid, Martin, with this much fuel in. He's really driving well at the moment, starting to put Massa in the shade, where Massa had really put him in the shade in the early part of the season. And I guess the carrot of a possible Williams drive is certainly working for Giancarlo Fisichella at the moment, putting in some terrific performances.
Ralf Schumacher's lead, 3.4 seconds now from Button. Michael Schumacher a further 4.5 seconds adrift. I wonder what happened to Clean when he came in the pits and appeared to do nothing. Ted can tell us.
Just complaining about a really badly unbalanced car, and the team had to bring it in, given Mark's suspension failure, to check it over for safety. The only thing they found after changing the front wing, it turns out needlessly, is that there's a hole in the rear wing end plate, and that might be addressing the imbalance in that car, but otherwise the car's okay.
Strange.
Okay, thanks for that, Ted. Still just two retirements then. Webber with suspension failure after first corner contact. Jarno Trulli with his rather unique one-piece rear wishbones. Maybe one of those failed, and he was out of the race within 200 or 300 metres.
Well, we saw that Ross Brawn, the Ferrari strategist, decided to put a lot more fuel into Michael Schumacher's car at that first stop than the rest took on, and we will find out now through this stint whether or not that was the right thing to do. It certainly looked like a pretty smart move. The Bridgestone tyres on the Ferrari have tremendous consistency. They really are, lap after lap. They yield up the same kind of lap time. And although Michelin have addressed that issue, it was a weakness for them earlier this season in race conditions. They're much stronger here than they were, but still not yet a match in the race for the Bridgestones. And Schumacher exploiting that then to the full here this afternoon.
Slow lap for Michael Schumacher there, 1:15.5. He's now 9.1 seconds away from his brother in the lead. So the Ferrari's not on it at this stage of the Grand Prix, James. What is that all about? We know they're running a little bit heavier on fuel, but it's not worked out well for them as Fisichella pits from 7th place for the first time at the end of lap 25. Ralf Schumacher, there is Fisichella then in the Sauber. Ralf Schumacher's lead down to just 3 seconds now. Jenson Button having a couple of tenths out of him every time around.
Yeah, he's doing a good job. There goes the Sauber. They're certainly doing a good job at the moment as well. The new wind tunnel cost £35 million to build. It's big enough to put a transit van in sideways. It's that large. I stood in the middle of it. I couldn't believe it. It's absolutely vast. And a lot of people called it a bit of a folly. But certainly at the moment, things starting to come through then for the Sauber team from that wind tunnel. You could see Fisichella rejoining then in 10th place, just in front of the Toyota of Olivier Panis. And 9th place to Mata in the Toyota is about 3.5 seconds then in front of Fisichella. So he ran long in the first stint, Fisichella, and it's gained him a place.
Just trying to imagine a transit van sideways in a wind tunnel. It'd be quite a sight. Ralf Schumacher leads at the Grand Prix on lap 27. Button second, now 3.1 adrift. Michael Schumacher 9.6 seconds adrift in 3rd place.
29 of the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you, and the old firm are at it again. Montoya versus Michael Schumacher. Somehow or other, Martin, Schumacher just isn't really on it at the moment. We know he stopped for about 10 seconds in that pit stop. That was 70 kilos of fuel he took on board, but it's only about 20 kilos more than Montoya would be carrying. That's about a half a second a lap difference, so it's not really explaining why somehow or other these Ferraris at the moment in the Grand Prix just don't seem to be on it, and Montoya senses it, and we've seen him getting very, very close to Michael Schumacher. He feels there might be a chance of passing. I just wonder if it might be brakes.
Well, Michael is braking quite early, or actually I think probably conversely, Montoya's braking crazily late. It is a tough circuit on brakes, a long way to go yet. They're only on lap 29, but Montoya, as you say, fancies a bit of a run at Michael. They put scrub tyres on the Ferraris at the first stop, and they just do not seem to be happy at this stage. Montoya then with a great slipstream down to turn one. Is he going to have a go up the inside? It would have been contact had he have done so, because Michael was not going to yield. But this is a reversal of the first part of the race, where the two Ferraris were looking very racy. But watch them under turn in. They just look a bit pointy. The back end's not sticking as well as it needs to do. And Barrichello only suddenly just able to barely hang on to the back of that pack. Montoya once again locking his brakes. They do need to watch those. They'll pay the price heavily in the last 20 laps of this race if they don't do that.
Well, Montoya was in front of Michael Schumacher in the first stint. Schumacher jumped him as a result of the first round of pit stops. And so Montoya is slipped out of position. He stopped on lap 13 and took on about 60 kilos of fuel. Should get him to around about lap 33, 34, something like that. So 3 or 4 laps away from his second stop here this afternoon. Schumacher quite some way away from his second stop. And I would imagine Montoya would quite like to get past him before he has to make a pit stop. Schumacher would be aware that Montoya has to do that, so there is a tactical consideration as well. He is going for a championship. Here comes Montoya now, so that's why he was so racy, Martin.
Yeah, so on completely different strategies then. Montoya for his second of 3 stops in this Grand Prix. And you have to say the Ferraris are still looking very strong, but not as strong as they were. Some gently scrubbed tyres going on there, and Ted is there.
I'm down in the Ferrari garage. Oh, they're a bit slow getting the hose away, but a good stop from Montoya. I'm in the Ferrari garage. There are no problems with Michael Schumacher's car. As we say, he's just fat with fuel.
Okay, thanks for that, Ted. Kimi Räikkönen pits also. He was 7th. And so he's stopped. He's been through the pits for his 3rd time, 2nd scheduled stop. And of course, he had a drive-through penalty for cutting the white line on the exit of the pits. The car bounces down on the ground. That knocks all the air out of your lungs when it does that, when they drop it off the front and rear jacks. But at least you know you're about ready to go.
He's not doing a bad job, is he, Martin? He was 7th drive-through penalty. He comes very close to crossing that white line again. That's what cost him the drive-through penalty last time. But he was up to 7th place again, having had a drive-through. Terrific effort.
Button, I thought I saw, yes. Button goes in the pits in the background, and there he is. Jenson Button then stopping at the end of lap 31.
This is important for Michael Schumacher, because Button was 8 seconds ahead of him on the racetrack, and obviously Michael's not going to have to stop again for a while.
I was looking at, oh no, what's that? It's away, but it seemed as if he had some kind of hiccup there getting away, Jenson Button. Does it accelerate cleanly? Yes, it does. Cost him a half a second or something, but I was looking at all the cars. Wide side pods, you've got to get a long way over with a heavy fuel hose. And now with the way the aerodynamics are on these cars, all the chimneys they have on the side, James, and the little appendages, little wings, you can see that the refuelers really have a tricky job getting near the nozzle on these latest Formula One cars, and I think it's costing them dearly on many of these pit stops.
Well, first time round we saw Button pitting the lap before Ralf Schumacher. No sign of the Williams, but now they're coming out into the pit lane, the Williams guys. So we're expecting the race leader then on lap 32 to come in possibly and make a 2nd stop of the afternoon. He's enjoying a 12.5-second lead over his brother. No, he's going through for another lap. But the Williams guys are still certainly standing out there and ready for him. So he's got 12.5 seconds in his pocket over his brother. And this is the phase of the Grand Prix where if Michael Schumacher is going to win, he has to really put the hammer down. Ralf Schumacher's going to make another stop with him this afternoon, but still, Michael needs to pick up the speed now. He's still lapping in the 1:15s, considerably slower than his brother, considerably slower than Button was going as well. Is Michael Schumacher managing the car, or is there some kind of small problem? There you can see car number 20 under investigation. Drive-through penalty then for Gian-Maria Bruni for speeding in the pit lane.
I wonder what they'll do. If Michael is struggling on this phase of the Grand Prix, they're going to have to let Rubens go through if they want to win the race. If Michael really is 4 or 5 tenths off the ultimate pace, they should just let Rubens slip through there. Can't imagine that's in the forefront of their minds at the moment, but that's the way it's shaping up, James.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because team order's no longer allowed in Formula One. You can't do anything which directly affects the outcome of the race. But you sensed early on that Rubens Barrichello was racy here this afternoon, and there's absolutely no doubt that at the moment he looks like he's got a quicker car than Michael Schumacher. He's been quick all weekend, Rubens Barrichello, to be fair. So that'll be very interesting. Into the pits then comes David Coulthard, and Ralf Schumacher, the race leader, also into the pits on lap 33.
See, the problem for Ralf, as we're watching Coulthard's second stop, problem for when you're on a 2 and they're on a 3. Sorry, you're on a 3 and they're on a 2. At some point, you've got to pass them, James, if they've got track position, and that's what it's going to be all about later on in this Grand Prix. So Ferrari then now taking up first and second position again. Where is Jenson Button in all of that? He looks like he's lost out to. He's lost out in terms of he's even further behind Ralf Schumacher than he was before the pit stops.
Yeah, he's now 7 seconds behind Ralf Schumacher, so we saw him slow away from the stop, Jenson Button. He was just 3 seconds behind before it, so it's cost him 4 seconds, that little stuttering leave of the pits. He's now behind Michael Schumacher, he's behind Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher, Alonso and Jenson Button in 5th place, with Montoya 7 seconds behind him. So the 2 Ferraris at the front. What's going on there, I wonder? It's Michael Schumacher. We've seen him, his sports car experience over the years. He knows how to protect a car, doesn't he? But look at how busy it is on the pit lane exit. And the Jaguar of Klein and Coulthard once again. They have been very close to each other in that area of the first corner a lot this afternoon.
Now remember, these 2 Ferraris are on different tyres, James. Michael went for the softer tyre, Rubens for the marginally harder one. And it does seem to help him, doesn't it? In the second half of each stint, he's able to catch Michael, start to hustle him along a little bit. Remember, last time around when Michael had this space as the others pitted, he started pulling 1:13s. Now he's just done a 1:14.9. The car is not underneath him as it was earlier in the Grand Prix.
No, he's going to make his second stop sort of in the mid-40s, that kind of thing. We're on lap 35 at the moment. And you have to say that Rubens Barrichello looks very comfortable in second place, doesn't he? Hasn't won a Grand Prix so far this season. He did say on Thursday in the press conference, this is where my World Championship quest, my campaign starts. He's had his strongest ever start to a Formula One season as Rubens Barrichello. He's been on the podium 5 times in 7 Grand Prix, including 4 second places. He's been in the points everywhere this year, and he is in touch with Schumacher in the championship, but as always with Michael Schumacher, beating him is so very hard for a teammate.
He's not looking too shabby at the moment, Barrichello, as they head towards another lap. They're on lap 35 then. They're first and second at the moment. They're 3.7 ahead of Ralf Schumacher. Now this is significant, of course. They've all got to stop one more time this afternoon, but it appears that Ralf Schumacher and Jenson Button have slightly faster cars, and maybe, just maybe, Alonso too, but he had a horrible pit stop that put him out of position, and that's what's going to work out later on. When they take their final stops, we've got Button and Ralf Schumacher on 3 stoppers, 2 of which they've taken. The Ferraris and the Renault, the remaining Renault on 2 stop, 1 of which they've taken. As I said, they've all got to stop then just the one more time, and that's why there's going to need to be some overtaking done.
Yeah, so Alonso's not looking too bad, 8 seconds behind Michael Schumacher at the moment, but they're on a similar sort of strategy. 1 more stop to take. You need 20 seconds in your pocket in order to maintain a lead. So that's what Ralf Schumacher's task is going to be when Michael Schumacher makes his second stop shortly. And I think that's probably beyond the Williams driver. I have to say, though, Williams have done a terrific job in turning around their fortunes. They had a terrible time on Friday, didn't they? Do you remember? I mean, Ralf had problems with his brakes, hardly did any laps at all. Montoya was all over the place with the car, a lot of technical problems, didn't get it much in. And they've really, technical department, now under Sam Michael, of course, who's taken over as technical director from Patrick Head. they really have turned it around spectacularly well since then.
Yeah, I've got total respect for Patrick Head for stepping aside at this stage of the Grand Prix. Some of the magazines, I think, got a lot of that wrong. You know, Patrick replaced and all that. It's just a common sense thing to do. Probably that was the roles many of the people were playing anyway. And Patrick, with probably his ego more under control than anybody else I know in Formula One, just saying, hey, this is the right thing for the team to do. I'm going to make these changes now. A lot of people would have manipulated that, manoeuvred it, positioned themselves in the press, and then done it at the end of the year in the quiet season.
Famously described then as a square-cut rigger in the feline world of Formula One by Richard Williams in The Guardian. I always thought that was a brilliant way to describe Patrick Head. He really is a square-cut rigger of a man. Lap 37, Michael Schumacher leading Rubens Barrichello. Less than a second. Me and my shadow at the front then. Ralf Schumacher third, 3.5 seconds behind his brother. Alonso fourth, fifth Button, sixth Montoya, seventh Raikkonen, despite his drive-through penalties and all the other incidents. He's really putting in a super drive today in the McLaren. And eighth, Cristiano De Mata. The second half of the Canadian Grand Prix on the Ile de Notre Dame circuit, named after the great Ferrari driver Gilles Villeneuve, who raced car number 27. At the moment, we've got Ferrari number 1 and Ferrari number 2 at the front of the Grand Prix, but they're on a different sequence of pit stops from Ralf Schumacher, who will resume the lead, I think, of this Grand Prix when Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello make their second stops here this afternoon, sometime in the next 5 or 6 laps. But Martin Brundle and I are speculating that there's something not quite right about Michael Schumacher's Ferrari today. He's been lapping about a second off the pace he was on at this stage of his first stint, and we're absolutely sure that Rubens Barrichello has a faster car under him here this afternoon, but Ferrari are not telling Michael Schumacher to let Rubens Barrichello through. He had a little tentative look at Michael a minute ago. You can see how close he is, but look how close also the Williams team are as well. So the spotlight really on Ferrari here at the moment.
Yes, they're playing into Ralf Schumacher's hands here. You can see Ralf just in the background. All the key players, we've got 6 drivers still in contention here. Michael Schumacher, Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher, Alonso, Button and Montoya. They've all got to make one more stop this afternoon. There's 20 seconds between the lot of them. I think we're going to see some pretty frantic action. But Barrichello will be sitting there very frustratedly because he can see Ralf Schumacher coasting up behind him. And I just wonder why Ferrari why Michael hasn't taken the decision. It doesn't have to be the team to just let him go.
Well, Ralf Schumacher, when he gets the lead back, is going to need a 20-second advantage as Michael Schumacher gets a little bit held up by the Minardi there of Zsolt Baumgartner, being lapped for the second time here this afternoon. And
Rubens has got a good toe there. Sorry to cut across you, James. Rubens really nicely in the slipstream, but can't do anything about it. Now, he's been breaking too deep into the hairpin at the end of this next straight. You've got to keep it neat and tidy and have another run on Michael into the final chicane. There we go. And again, the front just runs wide. Look, it's cost him dearly. Gets a better, cleaner run on the exit. But Rubens just a touch too hot into that hairpin, spoiling his chance of passing Michael down into the final chicane. Still, he's close.
Yeah, but telltale Michael Schumacher looking in his mirrors. You don't see that very often, do you? Michael Schumacher knows he's in a scrap here. Rubens Barrichello looks pretty comfortable. He obviously feels he's got a faster car. Rips one of the plastic tear-off strips off his visor as he gets down to business. He obviously wants a clear view then of the back of his team leaders Ferrari. Ralf Schumacher gets past the Minardi as well. He's racing hard here this afternoon. By far his best performance of the 2004 season so far, which frankly everyone's been describing as lackluster. I know there's been a poll in one of the magazines going on, the sort of half-term report, and Ralf Schumacher's been coming out 18th and 19th in some people's assessments, but here today he really has reminded everyone of his class. Bad news for the Brits. Button not fast at this stage of the Grand Prix, but watch out for Alonso. We haven't spoken much about him since he lost 8 seconds with a fuel problem in the pits. Nothing to do with him. And there you can see him, Alonso, starting to absolutely fly. 1.5 seconds faster than Schumacher, Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher up at the front. He's hauling himself back into contention, is Fernando Alonso in 4th place there, just with a back marker in front of him. Yeah, well, it can all be lost in a pit stop, can't it? Now, normal Ferrari tactics are that the two drivers are allowed to fight against each other up until the second round of pit stops, and thereafter they're told to hold station if they're together. There's Alonso pushing very, very hard. In 4th place here he is today, as he was 12 months ago. If you remember the finish here last year, Michael Schumacher leading home Ralf Schumacher with Montoya and Alonso. 4 cars separated by only 2 or 3 seconds at the finish. It was a train, the final laps. Chance that we could have a bit of a concertina here again this afternoon. A pretty close finish in prospect as Alonso gets closer and closer to the 2 Ferraris at the front. And remember, the Renault and the Ferraris are on a similar 2-stop strategy here this afternoon. 3rd retirement of the day. Bruni in the Minardi with a gearbox problem apparently. Webber out with a front suspension damage. Truly front rear suspension broken away from the start. 3 retirements, 17 runners. Michael Schumacher leads from Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher, and that is Sato getting in way too deep in front of the leaders. So Sato then, who is in 11th place and was fighting with Panis for 10th. Well, another 360 spin then for Takuma Sato. That's going to start being nicknamed the Sato moment, I think, fairly soon. He dropped it right here in the final corner yesterday in qualifying when he was on for pole position, as he had been in Monte Carlo, as he had been at the Nürburgring, and couldn't quite make it stick once again. Look at Barrichello so close to the back of Schumacher, and perhaps his time is running out as Sato pits then after that incident. Perhaps the time just ebbing away from Rubens Barrichello to have a chance. He's got to have a go at Michael Schumacher before the second round of stops, because as I said before, that's generally speaking where they tell the drivers to hold station. And here you see then Sato nicely up the inside, but just way too late in the brakes. Total miracle he didn't wipe out the Jordan. No luck, no skill involved in that, all luck, I have to say. And we then got Klein bouncing across. We've seen two broken chassis this weekend through moments like that. Klein, the only Jaguar runner, he's down in 16th. He's had rather a lot of adventures this afternoon. Lap 44 then. A lot of red caps in the grandstands, a lot of action on the track, a lot of lap traffic getting out of the way, but no big overtaking move just yet. Can Rubens Barrichello, in the few laps remaining to him, get past Michael Schumacher? Can he get close enough to him? Coming out of the hairpin, that's the vital time. One of the 2 Ferraris diving into the pit lane. There we are, there's your answer. Barrichello it is, into the pits. Rubens then from 2nd place.
And if it's true that they're allowed to race to the second stop or the final stop, then his moment has gone. But there's still plenty of laps to go. Ted is down there.
I've been into Ferrari yet again. They still insist there are no technical problems with Michael Schumacher's car. But I've said, I see as Alonso off, but I've said to them, can they race? And the team representative gave me a kind of funny Italian look, like, why are you asking me that?
Critically, though, he comes out. Michael Schumacher comes out, I think, behind Montoya, was that?
Barrichello it was.
Barrichello,
yeah.
sorry, comes out behind Montoya, and that will irritate him no end. Michael Schumacher leading the Grand Prix. Barrichello had to make the first of the 2 stops, and he's come out behind Juan Montoya, who we believe also has to stop again.
Yeah. So that's quite pivotal. That not clearing Montoya there is quite important, and that is such a shame. Alonso was steaming up behind the leaders and was about to bring himself completely back into play. That was Coulthard. He's P10 at the moment. The yellow flag's waving for the Renault at the front of the field, sorry, down into turn 1. So Alonso out of the Grand Prix, the 4th retirement.
So both of the Renaults out of the Grand Prix, both of them with reliability problems. We've seen Alonso, the only retirement Renault have had so far this season. He had a crash, if you remember, in the tunnel in Monte Carlo with Ralf Schumacher, and that's the only time Renault have failed to score points this season. But here today in Montreal, both of the cars out. Surely out with a suspension failure, and we'll find out shortly, with a bit of luck, what caused Alonso to pull out.
It helps Jenson Button, but he's just not fast enough at the moment to come through and win this Grand Prix on pure speed alone. All of a sudden, Michael Schumacher's back into the 113s. What's that all about, James? And he must be nursing his brakes or something. So we see Raikkonen pitting in front of us, and there is Alonso just literally pulling out of the Grand Prix. As you say, only 1 retirement. That was an accident in the tunnel in Monaco. So they've been pretty much faultless, but both of them out of the Grand Prix today. Raikkonen, new steering wheel, so some dramas in there, possibly with the gear shift then or something like that. We saw him struggling for straight line speed earlier on in the Grand Prix. He's had a penalty drive through. He's been involved in all sorts of incidents, but Raikkonen's still somewhere in the hunt for some World Championship points.
Oh, it's terrific. It really is. He was in 6th place before that stop. Now dropped down to 7th behind Giancarlo Fisichella, who's having a good middle stint in the Sauber. He's got himself up to 6th. Michael Schumacher then leading his brother Ralf by 6.1 seconds. They're lapping at an almost identical pace at the moment. Jenson Button 3rd, Montoya 4th. Rubens Barrichello has made his 2nd and final stop of the afternoon. That's dropped him 25 seconds behind his team leader. And with a car fat with fuel, there's really not much he can do now to try and put a few quick laps in before Michael Schumacher's 2nd stop of the afternoon.
So Schumacher must be nursing his brakes, I think. He's got the softer tyres on, slightly softer than Barrichello. He was not fast, and all of a sudden, boom, he just picked up a 2nd a lap. So something going on in there, and it's clearly under Michael's control, whatever it is.
Well, with Alonso removed from the equation, the only other front-running car, apart from Barrichello, on the same strategy, you can see Michael Schumacher, whoa, very nearly hit the pit wall.
I wonder if he slowed that down enough as he went over the line. Even if he's 1 kilometre over, he'll get nailed for speeding in the pit lane. Did Michael get it fully slowed down as he crossed the line? We'll have to wait and see. But the pit stop then underway, and this is his final one of the afternoon. Ralf Schumacher resumes the lead, and away he goes in a solid 8.5 stop. Just what you'd expect for a 2-stopper. And look what's happening in the background is...
Jenson Button.
Was that Jenson or not? Too long a shot, couldn't tell.
Yeah, difficult to say. Certainly Jenson Button is running in 3rd place at the moment in this Grand Prix, but the speed just isn't there today. It's frustrating for BAR, isn't it? They're lapping in the high 1:14s, and they seem to have better race pace than that. It's been another one of those weekends then when BAR just can't get 2 cars at the front of the grid. I know it's frustrating the team no end. As you can see, Barrichello having a little off-piste moment. But wherever Sato's been faster at the front of the grid, Button's had a bad day in qualifying. Wherever Button's been at the front, Sato's had a bad day. They just can't get the 2 cars at the front like the Renault team can do and like the Ferrari team can do.
Yeah, that would have cost Rubens dearly, wouldn't it? Those few seconds he lost there, taking him out of contention for a swipe at Michael as the leader pits then. The end of lap 48, Ralf Schumacher pits.
Very interesting. Did you see as Ralph came into the pits there? It was a very fast shot, but there was a big black skid mark right into the pit lane entry, and it looks like where Michael Schumacher obviously very nearly hit the pit wall. Did he get the car slowed down enough? That's the big question, I guess, and hopefully we will find an answer at some point.
Well, if that 9.3 is right, that wasn't a good stop from Williams there, and out comes Ralf Schumacher then. He's stopped 3 times, that's all he's going to do now, so he's got to go racing. And where does he fit back in to the equation? Presumably he's behind the Ferraris.
Certainly behind Michael Schumacher, Button, Montoya, Ralf Schumacher then being shown as the top 4. You can see the stops they've made. Rubens Barrichello with his problems has dropped down to 5th. He certainly gets the lion's share of the bad luck, doesn't he, Rubens Barrichello? That's the rest of the field. Coulthard's having a good afternoon after a very, very bad start where Clean hit him, and other incidents as well before pit stop. Coulthard racing in 9th place, yet to make his 3rd stop of the afternoon though, which will certainly drop him down.
Fisichella is 6th at the moment. He's pitted once, Raikkonen's pitted 4 times, so and they're still just a few seconds, they're 9 seconds apart, so that's a bit of a different strategy for you. As a Button then makes his final stop, he was just 2.6 seconds adrift, and Montoya right behind him. This is a mechanics race.
Yeah, straight fight between the BAR boys and the Williams boys. They certainly haven't been too shabby, either of them, throughout the season. Button stopped first. A little bit slow coming off the front left, and Button's going again. They release Montoya. Ah! Frustration for Montoya, and frustration for the Williams mechanics too. And you can see they came in right together, but Button's leaving a little ahead.
Crucial stop then for the BAR team, but these two have, and that must be, is that down at turn 3? Would that be, we think that's Sato. If it is, he's the one, it is indeed Sato, because that's Jensen going through our foreground there. So yet again, Sato struggling with his engine.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? We've seen already this season Takuma Sato, 3 engine failures already. That's number 4. And there were certainly questions at the beginning of the weekend. Why is it always Takuma's engine that seems to blow up? He lost the engine, if you remember, at the Nürburgring 2 weeks ago after having made contact with Rubens Barrichello. Straight after pit stop, he blew up. And it's a few laps since Sato's pit stop, so it's not due to that. It's just literally let go on him out on the racetrack.
There's, in my view, in anything, especially in Formula 1, there's always a reason for everything, and it must just be. I know that with the semi-automatic gearboxes, you shouldn't and can't really over-rev them, but you can still use your engine in a different way as a driver, and maybe choose your ratios differently, whatever. But Sato, although there is a rumour that they're putting development parts in Sato's engine, whatever, it's his that's always failing. He has to take a look at his driving style on that one, though, just to be sure.
Certainly a very aggressive young man, Takuma Sato. He becomes yet another retirement. It's pretty tough on engines. There's plenty of smoke out on the racetrack for everyone to drive through. Remember Monaco, where his engine let go down at the back corner. And as the drivers tried to find their way through, Fisichella climbed over the back of David Coulthard. Not such a problem here in Montreal with dissipating the smoke from a blown engine. Michael Schumacher leading the Grand Prix on lap 51 of 70. Just 20 to go then.
Right, so this is how it did shake out then. Now they've all stopped, all the front runners have stopped. Michael Schumacher 5.9 ahead of his brother, Ralf Schumacher. Barrichello with a scruffy stop and an error shortly after that pit stop is down 11 seconds adrift of Michael now. And Button, Jensen Button, unfortunately, down in 4th, Montoya 5th, Raikkonen 6th.
Here we go then, through to the finish. 17 laps to go in Montreal. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. Michael Schumacher leading the Grand Prix by 6.3 seconds from his brother Ralph. Rubens Barrichello has dropped down to 13.5 seconds behind his team leader. Button fourth, Montoya fifth, and Alonso we saw going out of the Grand Prix earlier on. He's talking now to Louise.
Yeah, the bulletproof Renaults have let you down this weekend, haven't they? What was your problem?
I had a drive shaft problem and I finished the race. I don't know what Jarno had, but you know, unfortunately we didn't finish in the points, and we have to look for the next Grand Prix. We are competitive, so we have to be optimistic in these bad moments. A
storming drive up till then, though.
Yeah, I drive maximum. I lost a little bit of time, the pit stop, but anyway, the car was okay, and I managed to recover a little bit of time. And you know, the race is long. We were only half a race, and you never know what is going to happen at the end.
Bad luck.
It is bad luck for all of us, because it took the sting out of the Grand Prix, didn't it? The two Renaults out of the action. I think they had the pace and strategy to give Ferrari a major fright today, and we lost both cars with reliability. The engine and gearbox at the back of the car, of course, and then two drive shafts just out to each rear wheel, and they do take quite a pounding over these curves as Coulthard pits from 9th. He was having a good scrap with D'Amato for 8th. Shunt in the first corner, tapped around by Klein, we think, in the Jaguar. And both McLarens, though, got a chance of some points this afternoon, James.
Yeah, David Coulthard looking to nick a point, I think, from Cristiano D'Amato, who's currently in 8th place. They were pretty close together before Coulthard made that stop. D'Amato has stopped twice already this afternoon. Another stop in the offing, no doubt. I completely agree with you, Martin. Alonso and Trulli being out of the Grand Prix really did take the sting out of it, because that middle phase of the Grand Prix, I think, is one we'll be talking about for a while. It'd be very interesting to hear from both the Ferrari drivers exactly what was going on there, because certainly it looked as though Rubens Barrichello had a faster car under him. He had one sort of half-hearted look at trying to pass Michael Schumacher into the chicane at the end of one of the laps, but apart from that, he just sat there clearly in a quicker car while Schumacher nursed the brakes or nursed some kind of problem, not sure what, but that was the moment, if both Renaults were on track, to do something.
Yeah, but then maybe Ferrari would counter it. Yeah, okay, but then Rubens went off the track after his pit stop, lost a lot of time bouncing across the grass. I think it was more through frustration than anything with Rubens Barrichello. We only caught an absolute glimpse of what he was up to, so we don't know how long he was off the road. But the BMW there revving to 18,600 between gear shifts. That's sort of two-stroke motorcycle revs, isn't it? Just incredible for a 3-litre V10. But Button just 1.7 seconds ahead of Montoya. That is a fight then for 4th place, but they are now 25 seconds away from Michael Schumacher. Schumacher just was majestic on his in and out laps, and those crucial laps that counted. He knows when to push his car harder, and he really must have been entirely clear he wasn't under pressure from his teammate Barrichello. Michael keeping his car well intact at the moment. A bit ominous earlier on, I saw Button exiting one of the chicanes and his brake disc was still glowing on the exit, and that's usually a sign of a very hot system indeed. That's probably why Jensen started to fade away from the pace.
Well, Michael Schumacher encountering as much traffic as he would on Crescent Street on Saturday night. Certainly I've never seen as many people out and about in Montreal as there were last night. Parties going off everywhere, people singing, dancing, taking to the streets. Really is carnival time here in Montreal when the Grand Prix comes to town, and perhaps just the threat that they might have lost their Grand Prix, they really had to claw on to get it back again into the calendar, has obviously inspired the Montrealers and other Canadians to get down here and really party their socks off. It's a terrific atmosphere here in Montreal. A number of them have come to see a Ferrari victory, and they would have had their heads down yesterday after qualifying with Schumacher 6th and Barrichello 7th on the grid. But, well, Ferraris were carrying a bit more fuel. The strategy has certainly played to their hands today. They were on the right strategy for the afternoon, no question, but undoubtedly helped by the Renaults, both having technical failures here this afternoon. Williams have found more speed in the car. That's some good news to come out of Montreal. Ralph Schumacher going very strongly, same sort of pace as his brother at the front. And Juan Montoya also really trying to nick a few points off Jenson Button. A great battle shaping up there between Montoya and Button for 4th place. So Williams look like they're getting their act together. Certainly they've got some more development parts coming. Felipe Massa pits from 12th in the Grand Prix. His teammate Fisichella on for a couple of points as things stand at the moment in 7th.
Michael's lead over his brother then just 7 seconds, but it's pretty static, isn't it? A 10th there and a 10th there, backwards and forwards, and you just sense that Ralph has mentally accepted second place here. He would have been surprised, I think, just how far he was behind Michael after his 3rd stop. Michael putting in those hot laps when he needed it. Rubens off the road, he was hustling Michael for all he was worth, and then made an error and dropped right out of contention, 13 seconds adrift. So the best fight on the racetrack then is Button and Montoya for 4th and 5th at the moment. Schumacher at the front, apparently not really now seriously under threat or pressure, just nursing his brakes, in particular home.
Yes, it's pretty tricky here on the brakes, isn't it? The temperatures are absolutely unbelievable. As I said before, 5.5 G is the force in braking into that final chicane there. They go from 215 miles an hour down to 75 in just 2 seconds. What does that feel like? I mean, does it just feel like hitting the floor or something with your face?
So I was listening to something else there, James.
What does it feel like when you hit the brakes at the end of this long straight into the chicane and you get this 5.5 G just whacking you in the face?
It sucks the air out of your lungs. On a cold day, it'll pull a teardrop out of the corner of your eye, such is the force. I've had that, where it pulls the teardrop out onto the back of your visor when your eyes are a little bit watery. It's just, I would imagine it's a bit like being hit by Mike Tyson, that sort of feel. But your body gets used to it somehow or other, you know, because all your internal organs are moving around at 5.5 G as well, for good measure. It's not just the car. And that then is, there's just the immense energy. It's so difficult to see that on the TV picture, and I try to explain it as much as I can of the incredible energies that are going on inside the car. That's why the drivers are constantly in fitness regimes, even through a Grand Prix weekend.
So 70 laps of that in a Grand Prix. What kind of tiredness do you feel at the end of an afternoon like this? Where does it hurt?
Well, it's sort of 100% tiredness through your whole body, mentally and physically. But these guys can cope with it. They'll do 2 Grand Prix distances on any given test day, sometimes for 3 consecutive days. So actually, one race is not too difficult for them.
Jenson Button there, putting a lap on the Jordan. We've got a new face, as I said before, in the field today. Timo Glock in the Jordan. German driver, 22 years of age, having his Grand Prix debut. And the Irish mechanics down at Jordan refer to him as Tim O'Glock. They're claiming him as one of theirs. Ted, what can you tell us?
Just gone down to Ferrari again. They have confirmed that Michael is now nursing his car, nursing his brakes. He's much harder on the brakes than Rubens Barrichello is, and the feeling is that he's going to try and avoid a problem rather than the problem coming up on him on the brake side. On Rubens, he admitted he did make a mistake, but he's now pushing hard. The car's okay. He's pushing hard to try and get Ralph.
Yeah, and he's closing in on Ralph, 0.6 of a second on the last lap. Ralph, I think, is also nursing his brakes. Williams, we saw them having a problem in Barcelona, which is not a heavy braking circuit, although they did have a specific reason for that. But Ralph Schumacher cannot relax. He's no longer chasing his brother. He's now going to be under pressure, I think, from Rubens at Barrichello in the second Ferrari in the final stages of this Grand Prix. And Montoya keeping Button honest too. Button 4th at this time.
Yeah, but the problem in Spain was that they went for 2 small brake ducts, didn't they? Whereas here in Montreal, you can't really see them on these pictures, but the brake ducts are the size of the Mersey Tunnel, the biggest certainly they've ever put on the car. It's certainly allowing Juan Montoya to monster Button, but Ralph Schumacher, as we say, falling a little bit into the clutches of Rubens Barrichello. He certainly halted that just now, though. His last lap was a 10th faster than the Ferrari drivers. So Michael Schumacher 8 seconds clear of his brother, with Rubens Barrichello 5 seconds behind Ralph. And then Jenson Button some 12 seconds behind as well. And I think the BAR team will be disappointed that they weren't able to capitalise on the form they had coming into this Grand Prix. 4th still, another good result for Jenson Button if he can hold on there. But it's not, when you start second on the grid, you expect a bit more.
Yeah. The ways you can look after your brakes are, I mean, you get over 1 G of deceleration just lifting off the throttle pedal, enough to throw your head forwards because of the drag of all the wings that you can see, the white parts there on Michael's Ferrari creating a tremendous downforce. but also a lot of drag. Was that a cruising McLaren in the background there? Kimi Raikkonen with apparent problems then. He was running sixth, in with a chance of some World Championship points. Has Raikkonen retired from the Grand Prix? Still coasting into the pit lane. If he swings straight in the garage, you'll know the story. But yeah, you can lift off a little bit early, let the aerodynamic drag slow the car down, brake a little later, therefore less hard. But why Michael Schumacher's harder on his brakes is that he uses the brake pedal more in the corners to turn the car and just balance the car up. They changed yet another steering wheel there then for Kimi Raikkonen, presumably because he got some kind of gear shift problem.
Baumgartner yet again having to get out of the way. He's been lapped, I should say, at the most odd places in the Minardi, Joel Baumgartner. And right at the apex of turn 2 is a very awkward place to find yourself being lapped. Still, he manages to get out of the way. Michael Schumacher then on lap 62, just 9 to go, as you can see, chasing a record, yet another record to add to his pantheon of the... No man has ever won the same event 7 times. Schumacher's won in Montreal 6 times, and he's just a few laps away from yet another piece of Formula One history.
Can't help but feel they've given it to Michael today. I mean, the Button and Ralf Schumacher on the front row by 3/4 of a second, and that's almost a major own goal these days with the way the regulations are, where you carry your qualifying fuel into the race. So they may as well have had another 10-15 kilos of fuel on board and still would have comfortably been on pole position. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, of course, in those circumstances, but they've allowed Michael, I think, to get away up front when with the Renault's unreliability and maybe a bit of strategy problems, I think they had a chance to beat him today.
Yeah, Rubens Barrichello will argue that he might have had a chance to beat him as well. Certainly up to the second round of pit stops, he looked very racy indeed. Now fallen away, 14 seconds he is behind Michael Schumacher. And he's got Ralf Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher between himself and the team leader.
Montoya then shaping up to start bullying our boy Button for 4th place. Strong showing from Williams this afternoon. Second at the moment for Ralf Schumacher, Montoya 5th. And they just found the sweet spot, didn't they, with setup, literally in the closing minutes before yesterday's first qualifying session. And they've been strong all afternoon.
Well, Ralf Schumacher saying yesterday that there hasn't been too much development on this car of late, but there's got new things coming along for France and other Grand Prix. You can see the left hand of Montoya there, just making some adjustments probably to the brake bias, presumably moving it back a little bit, just gives the front brakes a bit of a breather. Lovely onboard shot then, 18,002 on the clock at the red line for the BMW engine. Powering out across the pit straight he goes, 190 miles an hour before he throws out the anchors here into turn 1, 60 miles an hour into turn 1, and look how close he is to the back of Jenson Button. This is the battle for 4th place and the principal interest in the closing stages then of this Grand Prix. And is Montoya going to be able to put a move on the BAR of Jenson Button, who really, frankly, at the moment is lapping, well, pretty reasonable pace. So it's just that Montoya is having one of those Montoya moments. The raging bull of Formula One has got something to drive for.
Yeah, he'll not be a happy bunny that Ralph's outperformed him through this Grand Prix weekend either. Ralph, though, just 8.4 seconds down on his brother Michael up front. 2 reasonable scraps, and Barrichello can't make an impression on Ralf Schumacher, though. Michael Schumacher, Ralf Schumacher 2nd, Barrichello 3rd. This is the main scrap now. Button 4th, Montoya 5th, and let's hear from Ted.
Yeah, down in the Williams garage with the Special Projects engineer Frank Durney. Frank, Michael's obviously nursing the car, maybe a brakes problem. Why aren't you telling Ralph to really push hard?
Oh, we are telling Ralph to really push hard. He's pushing. Our car's pretty healthy. We've got no problems, and Ralph's just pushing.
Is Ralph susceptible to Rubens, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think he's not really invulnerable at all.
What about Montoya's race?
Well, he's pushing Button now. It's getting quite exciting. I think he's going to have a good go.
OK, we'll look forward to that. Thanks, Frank.
One of the wise old sages of the Formula One engineering world, Frank Durney, was Nelson Piquet's race engineer at Williams way back when. He was in the team, very beginning of the Williams team, actually. It was him and Patrick Head, and the bloke that makes the tea were the only staff members. He looked after what was then the the beginnings of the aerodynamic art. It's become more and more sophisticated and more important in Formula One. And now he's certainly Patrick Head's, should we say, his eminence grise, if you like, on the ground, was always there with a practical piece of engineering advice, a bit of a help for Sam Michael, the new technical director at the Williams team. Montoya, though, trying to get closer and closer to Jenson Button. You can see it's all about the exit speed from that hairpin, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm looking at, we've got a yellow flag out for somebody. I thought I saw somebody outbrake themselves down at the hairpin. That's a big shunt with some wheels off. Down at the far end of the racetrack. It's very skinny there, the runoff area, but going in nose first. The driver should be okay. That's a Sauber of Massa, Felipe Massa from P12. And we just caught the side of him doing that behind the Button at Montoya scrap. And I think Massa's still in the car at the moment, but I think he's talking to the team, giving them some information before they disconnect his radio. The cars are supremely strong in that at that angle. We've now got a safety car standby scenario, as you can see at the bottom of your screen. That is why the yellow flags are there then, and the safety car has been stood down. Now they've got Massa out of the Grand Prix. They'll need some heavy double wave yellows down there while they get that car out of the way.
Certainly looked pretty shaken up there, didn't he, Felipe Massa? That was clearly a very big impact. The wheels down the left-hand side of the car missing. And as you say, safety the #1 priority in Formula One, and it's quite incredible what these cars can withstand. Schumacher just 4 laps away then, as the Sauber, look at the damage of that nose. Certainly done its job absorbing the shock. Schumacher just 4 laps away from a historic victory here in Montreal, if not a classic one. Kinds of fun and games going on here still for 4th place between Jenson Button and Juan Montoya, picking their way through lap traffic.
I'm just looking at the computer speeds here, James, while you were talking. Montoya's faster than Button in all of them, particularly critically the back straight, the long back straight. I think if he can get near enough to him, he's got a great chance of slipstreaming past Jenson Button. But JB is keeping it nicely together where it matters in the mid part of the racetrack, and just making sure Montoya can't get a sniff of his slipstream. A little bit of pirouetting going on between Klein and what must have been Heidfeld fighting over. Were they fighting over position? No, Klein's a lap behind him.
Well, I tell you what, Christian Klein has certainly had a number of incidents today, hasn't he? Absolutely extraordinary. There's a replay. Oof! Oh, dear.
That looked like left rear suspension failure, didn't it, for Massa there? His rear wheel was flailing around before. You're coming in there well over 190 miles an hour, so it's a relatively significant impact, but totally survivable.
Heart failure for the cameraman, I think. That's a very brave bloke to stay there when that shot, for that shot. Car approaching you at that kind of speed. Jenson Button, mirrors full of the man who replaced him in the Williams team back in 2001 after Jenson's debut season. Terrific job he did that first year, outperforming Ralf Schumacher a couple of times. Here in the background you can see Klein doing a full 360, and it's Timo Glock alongside him making his Grand Prix debut. Well, I look forward to seeing Klein in the paddock later and say, what was the highlight of your race then, Christian?
Yeah, I suspect you might be queued up behind David Coulthard to speak to him about the first corner, probably. But Barrichello about to put the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and so where's he been in the last 10 laps? As he starts to close down Ralf Schumacher. There is Ralf Schumacher, P2, 6.9 seconds behind his brother. And Barrichello, you saw in the background there, as we're homing in now, but just 2 laps to go. So we'll watch Barrichello over the line as he does he just done a new lap record. Explain that one. Where on earth did he suddenly pull that one out of the bag? And if so, as I said, why didn't he do it 10 laps ago and frighten the life out of this Williams?
Absolutely right. There's Ralf Schumacher all on his lonesome now, 6 seconds behind his brother, 4 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who's probably left it too late, I think.
Button's just popped in his fastest lap of the Grand Prix too, so he's edged a little bit away from 5th place man Montoya.
See the clock ticking up as well, and the gap 5.2. It's coming down then for Ralf Schumacher, but that's just Michael Schumacher managing the pace, I think, through to the finish. his brother Ralph by now just 4 seconds. Rubens Barrichello is in 3rd place. Jenson Button is 4th, with Juan Montoya monstering him pretty hard. And 1 point today, Martin, for Jenson Button, and he will have more points this season than Jacques Villeneuve managed in his entire BAR career. Absolutely incredible how well the BAR team have turned things around this season, and particularly how well Jenson Button himself has turned things around. We're not going to get an English victory here today in the Grand Prix with Jenson Button down in 4th. Who knows, in the football coming up shortly, England versus France, what a thrilling prospect that is. Maybe we'll get an English victory there, but it's certainly looking very much like a German victory. And not just any old German victory here for Michael Schumacher. His 7th Canadian Grand Prix success, which will be an absolute record. No one's ever won the same Grand Prix 7 times. And he's had to work for it this afternoon from 6th place on the grid. They haven't exactly been giving it away. Into the final chicane then for Michael Schumacher. Coming down to cross the line and win that historic 7th Canadian Grand Prix, his 77th career victory. One wonders what might have happened if the 2 Renaults had stayed around long enough to race him. Looks as though Jenson Button is going to beat Juan Montoya to the flag. Ralf Schumacher has already finished in 2nd place. Barrichello has already finished in 3rd. Yet another podium then for Rubens Barrichello. Be very interesting to hear what he has to say about the middle part of this Grand Prix, Martin, where he did seem to have a faster car than his team leader. Perhaps Michael Schumacher just nursing the car at that point. Montoya finishing 5th then. Fisichella, another terrific result for Giancarlo Fisichella. That's 2 points finishes in a row for him, his 3rd points finish of the season. And my driver of the day is this guy. I don't understand how he can possibly be in 7th place, Kimi Räikkönen. He's made 5 pit stops, he's had a drive-through penalty, he's been involved in an incident in the first corner, and he's had 3 steering wheels, and Uncle Tom Cobley and all, and he's still managed to score 2 points.
Yeah, amazing. He has been going well. Helped, of course, by the unreliability of the Renaults today. I think Michael will be particularly satisfied. He went and took that win away from there. He sat on the grid today, I would think, imagining he may not win this Grand Prix. And they had a good strategy. He's driven it well and protected his car when he needed to. Jenson Button just passing through Michael's mirror cam there. But Michael Schumacher won by 1 second in the end from his brother because he coasted the last lap.
So frustration for David Coulthard, finishing just a 2nd out of the points, but no doubt at all about who the winner is. Michael Schumacher, a terrific performance that's gone down well with this record crowd here in Montreal this afternoon.
To the second place driver, Ralph Schumacher, the trophy presented by Monsieur Gerard Conway, the Montreal. And the third place driver, Vince Maranello, the trophy presented by Mr. Roger Butte, the president of the ASF Canada. So congratulations, gentlemen. The voting party will now leave.